How's it going, everybody? This is Top of Drappo. Hope you're having a great day, and welcome back to another video. Alright, usually during this time of the day, I would like to go out and go for at least a 1 or 2 hour walk, depending on how hot or how cold it is. And usually there are a lot of really good benefits when it comes to going out for a walk, because it usually keeps you active and healthy as well. However, it's really hard to tell whether it's better to walk during the warm weather or the cold weather during this time of the year, and especially this time in which the temperatures are going to begin to drop quite dramatically. So that's going to be the debate for this video. For this one, I'm going to be talking about whether it's better to walk during the warm weather or during the cold weather. And so I'll share with you a few things to know about walking in both conditions. I'll share with you my personal preference, and ultimately leave it to you at the end to decide what you think is best for your health, whether or not you're going to go out and walk in these kinds of conditions, or when it's hot during the summer, which has now passed. Now, obviously, in order to have a very long life expectancy, you have to have at least some form of workout during the course of a few days, or maybe every day or something like that, depending on what your schedule works like. Now, usually most of the time, a lot of people will usually go to the gym, usually just go out and lift some weights and maybe just, go on the treadmill and go for a run or something like that. However, those can be really expensive at times, especially how much you have to pay every month. And so usually, if you want a free way to be able to go out and really get that exercise you need to lose weight, usually going out and walking around town is usually one of the best ways for you to be able to do that. That's exactly how I lost a large amount of my weight during the COVID pandemic. I went out and went for 2 hour walks during almost every single day during that time. And really because of that, as I said before, I went from almost 200 all the way to 150 pounds or something like that. And as a result, I'm in really good shape. In fact, even though now it's not as much now as I did before then, I still go out and walk whenever I have time to do so, usually for at least an hour or so. There's really a general debate that goes on in regards to when you should go out and walk. And specifically, like what kinds of conditions are better for you when you're going out for a walk. Specifically, whether or not it's better to walk during the warmth or during the times in which it is actually cold. So I thought I would share with you 4 important things you need to know in regards to going out to walk for both of those conditions. The first thing you really need to keep in mind is the temperature. Now, obviously, when you go out during the course of the day really depends on how hot or cold it is during that time. And so usually sometimes it would be better to really just to check the weather channel and see how hot it is and make a determination on when during the time of day you need to go out and go for a walk. For example, usually during the summer it is very, very hot, and usually those are usually some of the best times of the year. That's usually the time where a lot of people are usually going out of their house and really doing something fun, and usually you will see a lot more people go out and usually go for a run during this time. I usually like that. I usually prefer to go out during the warm weather during this time, because usually that's when it's usually in its best conditions to be able to go out and be able to get that exercise that you need. However, you have to also keep in mind in regards to how hot it is, because in recent years, during the summer, there's been temperatures that have gone up to almost the 90s. However, it feels like that it's really in the hundreds or something like that. As a result, it really gets a lot harder for you to be able to go out and walk without feeling some sort of sweat and a whole lot of drag as a result of that. But hey, it can still be a benefit at times, but you really need to be very careful. Sometimes you may have to wait until later in the day or early in the morning when it's usually a little bit slightly cooler before you're able to go out and get your walk, because it's a lot easier to go that without coming home feeling really stenchy as a result. Other times, a lot of people usually like to go out during the cold weather. In fact, right about now, temperatures are beginning to drop, as I've mentioned before, and it will be in the fall and winter weather that we'll begin seeing it. So obviously, you will be seeing a lot of people sometimes go out and walk during the winter, obviously. Some people would have a real preference to be able to go out during this kind of conditions as well. But there are some people that enjoy going out during the cold weather as well. Usually, as I said before, this is around the time where temperatures are going to begin to drop, and it really starts to feel more like fall and winter as a result. And sometimes people prefer to go out during the cold weather because they feel like that's more to their liking and their conditions than it usually is during the warm weather. But you also gotta keep in mind in regards to the temperature as well. If it gets too cold, that's when it becomes really unbearable at times, because no matter how many layers that you have on, if it's anywhere below let's say 20 degrees or something like that, it is going to be really, really hard for you to be able to complete a 2 or 3 hour walk or something like that without really feeling the effects of the cold. In fact, no matter how many layers you have on, there's still a good possibility in regards to how cold it could be that you could still potentially end up getting sick. Usually around this time, somewhere around the 30s or the 40s would usually be that more optimum time to go out and really get that walk during those kinds of temperatures, because usually that would be around the best time for usually be able to do that without the possibility of really getting sick. But again, that really depends on what time you prefer to go out and really get your walk done. The next thing that you need to keep in mind is what you are wearing during this time. Now, really during the summer and the winter times when you're going out for a walk and really getting that exercise, it really depends on what kind of clothing that you are putting on during this time of year. And that also really plays a role into how much weight that you potentially lose during this time. For example, during the summer, when it is hot, you obviously have to wear more of the short sleeve stuff, so usually most of the time either the sleeveless, the tank tops, or maybe even, just the short sleeve shirts, obviously. And most of the time you usually see shorts on as well. And because of that, some people, this is usually that time in which they would just go out for like a regular jog or something like that. I mean, this is usually the kind of clothing that you would see most people go out and really run on. Some people have also went out shirtless, obviously, because there's obviously going to be a chance that there's going to be a lot of sweat coming down on them because of how hot the temperature is. That's usually fine. But usually those would be the clothing that you really need to wear if you're going to go out and go for a run or a walk in those kinds of conditions. If you're going out in, let's say, like long sleeves or like sweats or something like that, hey, you need to be prepared for the possibility that you're going to look really sweaty and probably really groggy at the very end of it, because the chances are you're going to run low on clothing very fast if you're going to go out during the hot weather in those kinds of clothing. And then during the cold weather, obviously during this time you would really need to have a whole lot of sweats on. So usually during this time you would have sweatpants or maybe even a sweatshirt, and maybe you have a little bit of an extra long sleeve shirt or a jacket on, something like that. And maybe sometimes you probably have like a hoodie as well. So usually you would have to have something like that on during this time, because that way it'll be able to really help protect your body from the real chilly effects of the cold temperatures during that time. There's obviously no way you're going to go out and obviously do your walk or run in short sleeve shirts or shorts if you really decide to do that, unless you really feel like a maniac or something like that. And that's something that I really personally don't think that is a good idea. So really, if you're going to go out in cold temperatures and do your walks during this time, you really need to have a whole lot of layers of clothing on. Heck, even during this time, like clothing that I have on, just like a regular long sleeve shirt like this and even jeans, that could be good enough as well during this time. Next thing that is important is how much you hydrate. Now, obviously, before you go out for your walk, it is very important that you hydrate during this time. Usually, you would have to have like water with you, or maybe sometimes maybe even a sports drink like a Gatorade or a Powerade or something like that. It's very important that you have that with you whenever you are going out for your walk. And usually during the warm weather, you're gonna have to hydrate a whole lot more, because during this time, as I said before, the temperatures are going to be very, very hot. And as a result, you're gonna have to put a whole lot more fluids in you if you're gonna go out and go for your walk or a very long run as a result of that. Because without all of those extra fluids in your system, if you're gonna go out and run without all of those fluids in you, because of how hot it is, chances are you're going to pass out very, very quickly. And that is not gonna be very good for your health. So if you're gonna go out in a warm condition, you really need to hydrate very efficiently. As I said before, water and sports drinks, those are usually your best bet. During the cold, it's also the same exact thing as well. You gotta hydrate as well. But usually during this time, mostly during the cold, sometimes it will just be like a regular walk. In this case, it's probably best that you maybe just go with a little bit less than that. Maybe sometimes just, like a warm water or something like that. Or maybe even, just maybe like a granola bar. You bring something like that, just, and munch on while you're going out on your walk. Something to keep you hydrated and also healthy during this time as well. It really depends on how hot or cold it is during this time. But either way, in both situations, you really need to hydrate, because it doesn't matter how hot or how cold it is. If you don't have enough fluids in your system during either of those conditions, trust me, your health is really going to drop during those walks, and it is not going to end well for you at all, because the next place you could end up at is the hospital. Finally, it's really about the calories, because as I mentioned before, this has been the real topic of debate in regards to whether or not it is better to walk in the warm weather or during the cold weather. And I've seen a lot of articles that are online saying that, hey, it's best to walk in the cold because that's when you really burn more calories. Now, obviously, as I said before, usually during the summer, that's usually during the best time for you to go out and really get your walk in. Because as I said before, usually during the summer, yes, obviously you're gonna be sweating quite a bit, which obviously is not very good. But at the same time, you obviously get a lot more of a workout in your system. I mean, your body's already accustomed to the kind of weather that is out there during the summer, like usually during that time. And so obviously as a result of that, it's a lot easier for you to be able to go out there and really get your run done without having to take some time to really adjust to it. As a result, you feel like that after you run, you end up losing a lot more calories as a result of that, because all the hot temperatures that are down there, again, as long as it's not too hot and you're keeping yourself hydrated, it really allows you to be able to lose a lot more weight as a result of that. So usually that's kind of a preference to some, but I can understand as well why it would be more beneficial to walk during the cold when it comes to this kind of topic. As I said before, the more you walk in the cold, the more calories you're likely going to burn there. In fact, as I said before, in one of the articles that I've read before, because of the cold conditions, if you're going to walk in cold conditions, in, like I said, the sweats and all of that stuff, because of the conditions that is, your body would need a lot more time to be able to get accustomed to it, so that way your body can remain warm as a result. And because of that, that ends up leading to more calories being burned as a result. And because of that, that's why there are a lot of people that keep saying that you lose a lot more weight during the winter when you're walking during this time than you do during the summer. Now again, that depends on like what you're wearing and also what time of the day and how long you really are going out for your walk during that time. Usually 30 minutes for suffice, but any longer than that, you can burn a lot more than that. Now again, I saw the majority of my weight loss during the summer when I was losing all of my weight during the COVID pandemic, because I knew that during that time, my body was more accustomed to the summer conditions that were going on there than they would usually be during the cold conditions. So obviously, that's just my preference, but again, it really depends on what your preference is during this time of year when you go out for your walk. So after all of that, obviously, it's really hard to decide whether or not it's best for you to walk during the warm weather or during the cold weather. All of these factors, they really have the same benefits, but at the same time, it really brings different conditions as well. So you really have to think carefully in regards to whether or not it's best for you to walk in one kind of condition or another kind if you're going to be able to stay healthy and lose a lot of weight in doing so. So in regards to what I think is best personally, I personally usually like to go out when it's right in the middle. That's right, it's kind of out of nowhere. Not too hot, but also not too cold. Usually somewhere around the high 60s or the early 70s, somewhere around that time. That's usually my preferred kind of time for me to go out and really get that walk, because as I said before, it's not too hot and it's not too cold. It's usually a lot better for me to go out during this time, so that way I can burn a lot more calories, because I notice usually when I'm walking during that time, I burn a lot more calories during that time, and it's also not too hot as well, so I don't work sweaty as well, and it really brings a lot more health benefits during that time, because it's really right in the middle in regards to all those temperatures that I was just mentioning earlier in this video. So usually that would be my preference in regards to what kinds of conditions I would usually prefer when I'm going out for a walk. But again, it really depends on your style and when you prefer that you would go out and do your walk. Folks, as the temperatures continue to die down, it's obviously going to be very tough for those that enjoy walking during the summer to decide whether or not they should continue to really go on their walks during the winter. I usually prefer that you would do so, but maybe cut down on that so that way you're not really affected by the cold temperatures. And those that usually enjoy walking in the winter, hey, if you enjoy going out during the summer as well, same exact thing. It really depends on how long you are out there for. But again, no matter which conditions that you usually prefer to walk on, as long as you're doing it right, you will remain both healthy and active as a result, and you'll be able to remain fit for the majority of your lifespan, and also add a few extra years into your life as well. So while I usually would prefer to go right in the middle, it really depends on what your style of conditions are. So it's really up to you. But then again, you really need to remain active during this time of year. So whether it's hot weather or cold weather, you really need to go out and get that exercise, because otherwise the last thing you want to look like is a couch potato. Alright, that's going to do it for this video. Now, as I mentioned before, it does not matter what kind of conditions it is, whether it's hot or cold weather, you really need to go out and get that exercise so that way you can remain healthy. And everybody really prefers their different kind of conditions to go out and walk in. So I would really like to hear from you. Do you usually prefer to go out and burn some calories during the warm weather or during the cold weather? Feel free to let me know down in the comments below, and I'll be more than interested in hearing your opinions about it. Anyways, that's going to do it for this video. I hope you all enjoyed it. As always, if you'd like to see more of my content, be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you know when my latest video is released. Comment below for future suggestions for all my videos, whether it's vlogs, projects, or challenges, you name it, leave it in the comments below and I'll do my best to make them. As always, follow me on my social media. All the links are in the description below. That's going to do it for this midweek video. I hope you're having another great day. As always, I hope to see all of you again in another video very soon. Stay warm, everybody.